Hello there, I'm back again to ask you, the listener, an enormous favour. It is Podcast Awards season and the Irish Podcast Awards are very quickly coming up. And I would really appreciate it if you could vote for Real Life Ghost Stories in the Listener's Choice Award for the Irish Podcast Awards. You just need to go to the irishpodcastawards.ie/voting to cast your vote. The voting is open until October the 19th, 2023. You can vote once per email address and you can vote from anywhere in the world. You just need to remember to confirm your vote via email, and I promise you it takes 30 seconds, maybe even a minute at most to cast your vote, and I would appreciate it so much if you could vote for Real Life Ghost Stories. Here's the thing, most indie podcasts don't have budgets to even enter into most of the award ceremonies that go on for podcasting, and voting in a Listener's Choice Award is just a really good way to advertise for that podcast, and the little glimmer of hope that I might actually win brings me a certain amount of joy on a day-to-day basis. So if you are somebody who listens to Real Life Ghost Stories on the reg, if you like the content, I would really appreciate it if you could go to the irishpodcastawards.ie/voting to cast your vote. Thank you. I love you. Enjoy the episode. Hello and welcome to 31 Days of Terror 2023, day number 19, and in this episode I am having a chat with Conor McCrory, writer of Glass, a new play that is part of a double bill that is just perfect for Halloween. Now last week I spoke to Joseph about We Are Monsters, and Glass is the second play that is involved in this double bill. Upon the 9th floor of a skyscraper on Halloween night, a terrified Brodie Jenkins receives an ominous phone call from a stranger on a broken down train. And I must say that this play sounds right up my street. I can't wait to watch it. It sounds like it is a thriller and that it's going to be a roller coaster ride, and I'm really excited to see it. Glass is produced by Just a Regular House, and it is running this Halloween in the one and only basement of the Barons Court Theatre as part of a double bill of two brand new dark comedies that are fearful, funny and filled with ghost stories. Directed by Wyatt, Glass runs Tuesday to Saturday from the 24th of October to the 4th of November at 7:30pm in the Barons Court Theatre in London. It was an absolute joy talking to Conor, and as per usual with these episodes, this was recorded via StreamYard, so it may sound slightly different to what you're used to. As always, it's perfectly listenable, just the quality might be different. The links to book tickets to We Are Monsters and Glass is in the description of this episode, along with all of the social media links that you need to find Just a Regular House, which is the theatre company that is putting on these particular shows. I would love to see you there. I'm going to be there. I'm excited to see it. I can't wait. And I hope that you enjoy my little chat with Conor. And if it sounds like something you'd be interested in, please make sure that you book your tickets. I am joined in my virtual studio today by the wonderful Conor. Conor, tell me a bit about yourself. Who are you? What do you do? Why are you here?
Yeah, sure. Hi, hello. I'm Conor, as you may have guessed and just heard. I am involved in my friend Joseph Ryan Hughes Theatre Company, Just a Regular House, and I'm the writer of our second play, Glass. I'm also an acting director. I was originally a dancer as a kid, after it was my mum's and her profession, but I transitioned into acting as a teenager. I love television and theatre.
Random question. This was not on the list of questions, so I'm just going to throw you a curveball. Do you have a favourite theatre production that you have seen?
I do, actually, yeah. I would say I just saw it, actually, a couple of weeks ago. It was at the Savoy. It was called A Little Life.
Oh, my friend went to see it. I'm going to watch the live stream of it. Oh, yeah.
You must. It's one of our friends, actually the director of this play who we've got on was in the cast. The trigger warning is very severe, right? I mean, if you really... I remember going back home in Dorset, where I'd been for a couple of months, and saying, to people to go and see it, but unless you really have the stomach for it, you shouldn't see it. And you kind of had people saying, oh, I've seen quite a few productions in my time, I think I'll be okay. But really, you need to weigh it up whether you can make it through it, because it's tough. It's really tough, but amazing.
Yeah, my friend went to see it, and she's a psychotherapist, and she specializes in people with personality disorders and obviously people who've been abused and really traumatized, etc., etc. And she went to see it, and then we had a rehearsal that evening. So she came into rehearsal and she was just shell shocked. She was like, I just want to see a little life. She's like, I just need to tell somebody about it, because it was hard to get through.
I'm not surprised.
I've seen a lot of people talking about it.
No, it's wonderful, honestly. I mean, yeah, it's very raw and visceral, but if you have a strong stomach, it's wonderful. Yeah, it's one of those productions I don't think it will come along in a long time,
Yeah. So very important question, and probably the most important question that I'm going to ask you, because everybody wants to know. What is your favorite horror film and why?
I would say probably favorite is Hereditary by Ari Aster.
Yes, I love it. And so many people slag it off for that last 15 minutes, but I love it. I loved it. It terrified me when I went to see it in the cinema.
Oh my gosh, yeah. I mean, me and my friends saw it opening weekend, and I remember just coming out and shaking, which was just really unusual for a kind of reaction for me, because I don't know, I don't think I'm very emotive when I watch stuff, but that really got to me. I think the dread of that film is horrific, and I think it's so well done. I think it really opened up my brain as well in terms of what you can achieve with horror as a genre.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to just be visually frightening. It can just the horror can operate on so many different levels, and definitely helped a few scripts I've written. So it's a wonderful film.
Oh, I can imagine. And that scene where she's at the kitchen table and she starts screaming at her son. Oh, every time that gets me right in the soul.
Yeah, that's what I mean. It's like it's horror in so many different guises, because I mean, you can relate so deeply to bad stuff going on in a family dynamic. And I think I'd say the word to use is dread. I mean, it's just got this wonderful sense of dread throughout, and I think it's pretty horrific. That's probably my favorite horror film. The scariest, though, I will say, are probably the shorter works I've seen on YouTube. There are loads of short films, really, really good ones as well. There's so much work on there, really good work. I'd say, to name a few, probably The Smiling Man and The Box.
Terrifying. Both terrifying.
Yeah, even just the thumbnail of The Box is just petrifying. You should watch it if you're listening.
The Smiling Man is fantastic. If you haven't watched it, go and watch it. I haven't actually watched The Box because I just can't
do yourself a favor. Yeah, do it. It's such a clever idea, and it's executed so well, and it's kind of beyond me that it hasn't been picked up for some sort of grand retelling from Hollywood. But it's wonderful. It's very, very scary.
So going back to the matter at hand, can you tell me a little bit about Glass? So what's the general premise? What's it all about?
So Glass takes place on Halloween night and focuses on an intern called Brody, who works in a shiny glass building in an unspecified capital, where elevated railway bridges kind of run throughout alongside the buildings. So you can kind of see trains passing quite high up if you're on sort of 9th, 10th, 11th floor. And while the staff party upstairs with his boss, he's sent down to do a little bit of extra time. And it is at that moment he receives a call from a stranger on a train that he claims has broken down right outside his office, and they get into a bit of an interesting conversation.
Yeah, I'm intrigued already, to be honest. I'm intrigued. What a great premise for a play. So presumably, is it only just the two characters that are in the play?
Yes. So one is completely voiceover, and then you only have it's technically a one-man play because it's written for one person to play the other part as well, but there's only one man on stage at any given time, and that's our main character, the intern, Brody.
Wow, that is a lot of pressure.
Yes.
Do you have a particular ghost story that terrified you as a child?
I remember there was a local story called, I think it was called The Daisy Chain, I think, by a local author where I used to live in Dorset, and it took place in a real village called Tynan, and is also in Dorset, and it was bombed in the Second World War. It was about a phone box that used to ring on its own, and I think it was the ghosts calling. I actually visited the village when I was younger after having read it, and just remember being kind of deeply unsettled about being there because there's not much there, and this phone box is quite a prominent part of what's left of the village. And yeah, I remember being pretty unsettled, but also excited. I think when you're that young, a bit of fear is good. It's quite exciting for you, I think.
It's interesting, I think, and it sounds like it's one of those stories where all the young people in your local area like grow up hearing this particular story or eventually
Yeah.
being told a version of this particular story, like a proper local legend.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I don't even know if it was published. I mean, I have a faint memory of having it as like a not even a paperback, just like it was printed on paper and stapled.
Love it.
I think it was sold in the local bookshops, but I don't think it actually ever was kind of properly picked up. But I just remember it so well, kind of just having a paper copy and thinking it was terrifying. Yeah.
What was the inspiration behind Glass? And I'm really interested in this because when Joe told me the premise of the story when I was talking to him first, I felt like it was just perfectly placed to be like a modern no sleep story. It sounded like the type of story that I'd find when I was looking through the annals of Reddit looking for a fiction story to share with people. And for those who are listening who don't know what No Sleep is, No Sleep is a fictional horror mystery forum on Reddit where people submit their horror stories, and they don't necessarily have to be paranormal. Like it just feels like it could be a film. Like it's honestly just such a fascinating premise for a story. So what was the inspiration behind it?
Well, first of all, thank you. I mean, a lot of things inspired Glass. I think, kind of to riff off what you've said, the initial premise of two strangers getting into a dialogue somewhere up there was just a really enticing seed of an idea. And I think there's a lot of room for something quite beautiful to occur in something that's kind of momentary, and you don't know how long you're gonna have that moment with that stranger, but also something, I don't know, immensely unsettling. The thought of, for whatever reason, not being able to hang up on a stranger who is seeking you out in this very unique, isolated setting. I did find it very attractive from a writing standpoint. Yeah. Also, the main character, Brody, he suffers from panic disorder in the story, which comes from a time in my life where I was experiencing the same. And so he's a kind of mouthpiece of the discomfort of living with something like that. And I think we kind of, in the script, we try to delve into what can maybe cause those things. So if someone relates to that, then I think that's wonderful, and I'd love to see Glass as a film. Yeah, I think just in terms of even just the location alone and the setting, it lends itself to be quite cinematic, I think.
Honestly, there was, when I heard the premise, there were visuals in my brain immediately that I was like, oh, this would work so well as a film. Maybe
Hope so.
some amazing producer is listening to this and they're like, yes.
Yeah,
Let's get
I mean,
this film to Hollywood.
I mean, there's a tad of what's that film? Weirdly, this wasn't an inspiration, but I can see people maybe saying it was. Is it Phone Booth with Colin Farrell?
Yes, never seen it, but yes, I know the film you're talking about.
I mean, that's a wonderful film. And yeah, weirdly wasn't a part. And I think sometimes these things come to you after you've written it and you go, oh God, people are going to think that this is an in-world sequel or something like that I was inspired by, but it really wasn't. I just think the idea that you have to stay on the phone with a stranger who can see you, but you can't necessarily see them is just, it just is a great point in which to create something from, right? Whether it's good or bad.
And I can only imagine that your main character Brody would go through a whole swathe of emotions throughout that whole process of being on the phone with a stranger. And
yeah. I mean, there's a part in the script where there's one big kind of panic attack that occurs on stage after sort of having some context of why the caller is calling. I won't give anything away, and yeah, he just really has to put the lid on it because he feels quite unsafe, I think, but has to stay on the phone.
Oh, I'm so intrigued. I can't wait to see it. I can't wait to see We Are Monsters, and I can't wait to see Glass, and I'm just so excited to see both of them.
Thank you.
So has working on, I know yours isn't necessarily paranormal, right? It's more of a mystery story, I would imagine, but it has
Yeah.
working on a kind of a modern paranormal mystery story. Has it made you feel more in touch with your spiritual side?
For this project, I'd say no, because like you said, I think I would call Glass more of a thriller, personally. I did write an outright horror film about 3 years ago, which is very much more akin to the kind of thing we're talking about here, more of a supernatural project. And I remember while writing that, wondering if people who made horror films and big horror films kind of are more susceptible to these things and kind of have trouble sleeping at night, because when I was writing that, I didn't feel like I did. You know, I think if it's my own work for whatever reason, I don't think it frightens me as much. No, I think I don't feel like I'm opening any doors too widely in a way.
So I'm curious now, what was the premise of your horror film that you wrote?
It was a girl going through an identity crisis after her mother passes away kind of quite sort of prematurely. And she has reason to believe the mother is still trying to prevent her from changing her identity from beyond the grave, essentially. So it kind of works into, I think, identity and, you know, who you think you are and family ties. And I'd say it's a good old fashioned possession story, really. It's I do love that script.
I mean, you can't beat a good old fashioned possession story, can you?
They're great, really. Yeah, they are.
So why do you think that stories like We Are Monsters and stories like Glass, so obviously one more paranormal, one more kin adjacent to ghost stories, and one more adjacent to these kind of deep, dark mysteries, why do you think they have this universal popularity?
I mean, it's the curiosity of not knowing, right? I mean, we love that stuff. I think I was saying a couple of weeks ago when I was reading through this question, I thought this would be perfect for an answer. You know, there's a pretty simple trick you can do in that if you consider every story ever recorded that's paranormal or, you know, a ghost story or anything kind of in that world, it's essentially impossible to disprove every single one, right? So even if there's a 0.01% margin that's true in everything else that's a lie or, you know, a mistake or a missighting, there's something there. And I think that the idea that there possibly is what probably keeps us wanting to explore the more darker tales.
Yeah, I think fundamentally as humans, we sort of do like to explore the darker side of things from a safe distance. It just seems to be part of our condition for a lot of us. So have you had your own paranormal experience that you would like to share? Or does somebody you know, have they had a paranormal experience that you'd like to share?
My family have, but I never have, I don't think. No. I mean, there are things you can put down to sleep paralysis or overtiredness or stimulation, but I don't think I have. No, personally. My family definitely have. I think my mum told me there's a quite famous story in our family, which she told me quite young, where she was on a job. She used to be kind of a commercial dancer. She was working in Paris, and they were staying in a flat above the theatre, her and a friend, and her friend left for the weekend. And she used to say the light switches would physically go up and down. And it was a tiny, tiny flat. And they used to have these shelves in the bathroom opposite the bath, and these suitcases that were kind of very kind of tightly stacked, so nowhere they could fall off. And she used to say that on one occasion the suitcases would fly off the shelf to kind of hit her in the bath, and she kind of, obviously super spooked, moved out pretty soon. And when they did finally move out, they were told by the owner that one of the opera singers in the show years and years ago had lived up there and hung himself. Whether that was him or I don't know, but I think, you know, when you hear that from a pretty young age from someone who doesn't have any reason to really lie, yeah, I think you're pretty okay. Yeah, I'm on board. Yeah, but I don't think I personally have. No.
Would you consider yourself, again, a big question, would you consider yourself a believer or a skeptic?
I think a bit of both, to be honest. Maybe that's a boring answer. I mean,
I don't think it's a boring answer at all.
I used to not want to believe in ghosts because I was scared they'd come and eat me in the night. But yeah. I think, I don't know. I think there's part of you that wants to have your own experience, right? But then again, why the hell would you want that? I think I probably do believe. I believe in something. I don't know whether it's straightforward as terming in a ghost, but yeah, I mean, there's the whole thing of energy's never destroyed, right? So there's got to be something somewhere that's lurking. So yeah,
Sort of a ghostly agnosticism then.
I like that. Yeah, let's run with that. Yeah.
I also like that you use the word lurking. It just sort of it just implies some sort of sinister behavior. Fundamentally, the end. All ghosts are sinister.
Maybe. I mean, look, I think lurking. It implies something that we can't be aware of, right? So, I mean, yeah, let's go with lurking for sure.
What I enjoy it. It's a good word. So finally, why should people come and see Glass?
I think the time of year. I think, I would love to be seeing something theatrical and original around this time that's tailored to it as well. I also think these projects we're trying to sort of do here they're really pushing what you can do with a small team, because there's not many of us, and they're big stories I think we're telling this year. And the guys involved we've got, I mean, they're so good and they're so professional, and I know that we're all trying to make these plays the best they can be. And I think they're quite wonderful. I mean, ultimately, we just want you to have fun. We want to frighten you and hopefully leave you with something a little more that lasts when you go. Yeah, we just want to give you a good time and a good fright.
I think a lot of people who maybe haven't worked in the theatre world who are listening to this, it's kind of impossible to explain the amount of time and money and rehearsals, everything, and admin that goes into putting on shows. So, fair play to you guys, because it is an absolutely enormous feat to put on shows anywhere.
Absolutely. I mean, we started a couple of years ago with a play Joe and I wrote together, and that was a real education in, well, just everything really, because we were only actors and writers, at that stage. And now kind of when you do more shows and when you kind of do establish yourself as having your own theatre company and doing it from the start to the end, I mean, you have to learn so much. You have to become a producer. You kind of have to get good at talking to everybody in every field. It's just sell. So yeah, I think there's a lot of business to it, and it's a lot of work, but oh my God, it's worth it when people come and they say they enjoyed it. And if anyone takes anything from it, even if they hate it, I mean, a reaction is timeless, right? So yeah, that's what we do it for.
Yeah, and I think that's so true. Even if somebody comes and they absolutely hate it, like, listen, they've had a visceral reaction to something you've created. Yeah. There's nothing wrong with that.
You couldn't want anything more in my eyes, yeah.
So what are the dates? What is the information for coming to see Glass?
Sure. So Glass is the second play of two, and it starts on October 24th at 7:30 at the Barons Court Theatre. We Are Monsters will run first for about 40 minutes, then we'll have a little break in the interval where you can cool down, get another drink down you, and then Glass will run the second half for about another 40 minutes. So you're seeing two new original pieces of work back to back that are tailored for the time, and we run until the 4th of November. So that's 2 weeks, so Tuesday to Saturday over the Halloween week, and then the first week of November.
So that's a nice run. 2 weeks is a nice length of time to run it. And Halloween night, you're doing something pretty special, right?
We are indeed. Yeah, we're having a little party upstairs in the pub because the Barons Court's wonderful. It's a beautiful pub called the Curtains Up, and then below it is the space called the Barons Court Theatre. But in the Curtains Up pub upstairs, after the show on Halloween night, we're going to be having a little party. We're sealing off a section of the pub where you can come and talk to us. We're going to have a little photo booth with a monster from Joe's play and the glass fracture from mine, where you can take a little photo in. There'll be cake, there'll be drinks. You can come and chat to us about what you thought about the play. We'll be there. So if you are interested, then there is a separate ticket for Halloween night. It's a little bit more, but I think for what you get, it's definitely worth it. So if you have nothing to do for Halloween, yeah, come party with us. Yeah.
Yeah, what a nice Halloween to go and have some culture, see some theatre, and then have a fancy dress party. Love it. Sounds absolutely
if I wasn't doing it myself, I'd love to do it. Yeah. So definitely come through. Yeah.
So where can people find you on socials?
Sure. So we are at Just a Regular House Productions. I think we're under JRH Prods. That's the company one. My personal Instagram is Connor McCrory, which is CONR and then McCrory. I'm not on too many socials myself, but the page, we're across Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, predominantly on Instagram. So if you want any updates on what we're doing, then follow us on there. But yeah, come follow our journey and hopefully see you in October.
This is a total random question as well that I'm going to throw at you at the end. Why Just a Regular House? Why is it called Just a Regular House?
You'd have to ask Joe. That's
Okay.
his thing. I know that it stems from his full name is Joseph Ryan Hughes, and it's JRH
Of course.
Productions. So I think that's where the thinking comes from. But it could have been any word. It could have been jobbly rat holes, right? So I mean,
Yeah.
it could have been anything. So where Just a Regular House comes from, I'm not sure, but I think it's wonderful. I think it's very fitting for what we want to do.
Yeah, I love it. I think it's a great name for a theatre company. Love it. Thank you so much, Connor, for joining me. I really appreciate it. And hopefully people will be seeing you in October.
I hope so too. Thank you for having me.
Hello there. I'm back again to ask you, the listener, an enormous favour. It is Podcast Awards season, and the Irish Podcast Awards are very quickly coming up. And I would really appreciate it if you could vote for Real Life Ghost Stories in the Listener's Choice Award for the Irish Podcast Awards. You just need to go to theirishpodcastawards.ie/voting to cast your vote. The voting is open until October the 19th, 2023. You can vote once per email address, and you can vote from anywhere in the world. You just need to remember to confirm your vote via email, and I promise you it takes 30 seconds, maybe even a minute at most, to cast your vote, and I would appreciate it so much if you could vote for Real Life Ghost Stories. Here's the thing, most indie podcasts don't have budgets to even enter into most of the award ceremonies that go on for podcasting, and voting in a Listener's Choice Award is just a really good way to advertise for that podcast, and the little glimmer of hope that I might actually win brings me a certain amount of joy on a day-to-day basis. So if you are somebody who listens to Real Life Ghost Stories on the reg, if you like the content, I would really appreciate it if you could go to theirishpodcastawards.ie/voting to cast your vote. Thank you. I love you. Enjoy the episode.